What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today we have a very special guest, Jon Noyes. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, guys.
Well, guys, I want to give a quick introduction. Then me and Aiden are going to alternate a few questions. So here we go. Jon Noyes is a speaker with Stand to Reason and former atheist who became convinced of Christianity after examining the evidence of Jesus and the Christian worldview. Before entering ministry, he spent over a decade in the legal field. He later earned his master's degree in Christian Apologetics from Biola University with honors, which is awesome. He is founding pastor of a local church and serves on the boards of Life Without Limbs and Bible Thinker. He is passionate about helping people think clearly about faith, truth, and culture. Above all, he's a husband to Rihanna and a father to 4 daughters. So, how did you become a Christian, and just what's your testimony? That's kind of what we wanted to start with.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. I always like to say my story stats as all good stories do with I met a girl. I had just moved from Washington, D.C., where I was working at a really great law firm in downtown D.C., to Los Angeles, California. And my sister, she was already living in LA, and she had kind of been talking me up, like saying, hey, my older brother's going to be moving to LA. And she picked me up at the airport and brought me to a party. I have an accent, so I have a Boston accent.
All good.
So it's going to, if it confuses some of you listeners, I am so sorry. Feel free to jump in, Aiden and Jacob, if you need to offer a translation.
No.
Yeah, so she brought me to a party at an apartment building downtown, and right on the backside of downtown LA. And I was standing on the balcony of this apartment building and kind of looking out at the city, dreaming of what my future had. And then in the front door of this apartment building walked the most amazing girl I've ever seen. I mean, not only was she beautiful, and she is beautiful, but like just her personality and the way that she carried herself was super attractive. I mean, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, the way she carried herself was like very confident, not cocky, but
Sure.
confident, you know? And like, clearly she was cool. Like, people kind of wanted to touch base with her, like wanted to say hi to her. And well, because my sister had been talking me up, Brianna, she wanted to come meet the new guy, and I was on the balcony, and she walked kind of quickly, like briskly through the room, made a beeline for the balcony, and then she walked smack into the screen door of the balcony, which was perfect. I mean, it was unbelievable. She not only, guys, she didn't just like walk into the door, she like bounced off of that sucker. Like it was like a trampoline. Like, she bounced off it, she fell on her bottom, she flung her dark brown hair back, and she let out the most amazing laugh I've ever heard.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. And the thing is, like, it was so cool the way that she acted and reacted, I guess, is she acted like this had happened 1,000 times before, you know? It was like just what she did, and it was so endearing.
Just practiced it.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, come to find out, like, this is like her thing. Like, she walks in the doors all the time, guys. Like, like if there's a closed door, there's probably an 80% chance she's going to walk into it, like a screen door. And then it's like hereditary too. My second oldest inherited the ability to walk in the screen doors. In fact, if you go upstairs in my house right now, the door's closed to my backyard, and the screen in it is completely busted out because my daughter walked through it like maybe a year ago, and I just haven't gotten
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So anyways, like, Rihanna, like, that's my introduction to her. And what happened is like, she had me right then and there, but I started to pursue her, wanting to date her. Eventually we started going out, and like very early on in the relationship, she said something that's going to change the course of not just our relationship, but my life. She told me one day that she was a Christian. And when she told me this, it was like the worst news ever. Like, not only was I not a Christian, guys, but I was an atheist, like a pretty ardent atheist, meaning I was like evangelical in my atheism. Like, I wanted everybody to be an atheist, but more than that, more specifically, I wanted Christians not to be Christians anymore. I was very aggressive in my pursuit of Christians and trying to let them know how stupid I thought they were. I would if I found out you guys, like, say we met somewhere, you know, and I'd be like, hey, Aiden, man, let me take you out for a cup of coffee, because I need to berate you, and I have questions for you. And I'd say things like, and even with Rihanna, I started dating her, and when she came out of the Christian closet, so to speak, I would say things to her like, I thought you were an intelligent human being. Like, are you telling me you actually believe in Adam and Eve? That's dumb. Like truth seekers, intellectually responsible people don't believe in that stupid stuff. Those are the things of Bronze Age myths. And I would say these things to her all the time, trying to at first deconvert her. Well, um, we got to know each other more. She was putting up with me, and then eventually Rihanna wanted to become a member of a church. Like, she had asked if I'd go to church with her, and I'd done crazier things for the affections of a woman than
Yeah.
go to church. So I was like,
Yeah.
sure. And now, guys, it's important to understand. Like, I have zero at this point church background. I had never been to church. I had absolutely no idea what to expect. I mean, I had preconceived notions. Maybe at some point I had been to a Catholic church, like a mass, maybe once or
Sure.
twice, but not church. And I didn't know any Christians growing up, or at least it wasn't a part of the conversation ever. So I went in blind. And if you can just put yourself in my atheist shoes for a minute, like, I got saved at a charismatic church. So Rihanna, she brings me to church for the first time, and we're driving. I have absolutely no idea what to expect. And we pull up into the parking lot. It was in Studio City, California. And you get out of the car, and the music was like blaring. I mean, you could hear the music outside. And this was on Ventura Boulevard. Ventura in Lancashire is where the church was. And it's like, I remember thinking, oh, wow, this is kind of cool. It's going to be a rock concert. Like, I can get with this. And it was good music, too, because it was in Studio City. So there's a lot of good, talented musicians
Right.
around.
Yeah.
So then, so we go in. I'm like, oh, this is rad. Like, this is a rock concert. But then I start to like listen to the words of the song, and it's like about blood and like washing you clean. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it's like a bunch of vampires. This is weird. And then, it's charismatic church. So over in the corner, there was a woman spinning, during worship, and then
Oh man,
people
yeah.
down front prophesying in tongues.
Yeah.
So then it's like, not only are you people weird, but you're nuts, like certifiably nuts. Well, Rihanna wanted to keep going back to this church, so of course I kept going back with her. And eventually she wanted to become a member of the church. And the final step in the membership process was you have to meet with the pastor, kind of like an interview, so to speak. So I went with her, of course, to this interview, and he knew I was coming, and I had prepared myself to sit down with this pastor. I did research for about 2.5, 3 weeks. Researched, like how you can't trust the Bible historically, how Jesus' resurrection is just a reiteration of all the ancient, mythological stories that we've heard of, like Dionysus and all these other things, how the age of the earth is ancient, and you can prove that through science, and like all the stuff. I did all the research because I had in my mind, I'm just going to go spank this pastor, and crush him. I could see like LA Times headlines, like atheist destroys pastor, and I'm like, oh,
Sure.
I'm like the hero of the
Yeah.
atheist community, And we went in, and Rihanna, she shared her story, which is incredible. And then Pastor Dave, he looks at me and says, hey, John, what brought you in tonight? And I said, oh boy, let me tell you. And I just started peppering him with questions. And he answered some of them. A lot of them, he said, I don't know, too. That's a good question. I have no idea. But even the answers didn't really satisfy me. And at the end of the meeting, and this is where kind of everything changes and shifts, he hugs Rihanna and offers her membership. And then Pastor Davey takes my hand in his, and as he's shaking my hand, he says, John, we have enough members right now. Thanks for coming. Totally rejected.
Wow.
And I know it's somebody like what some people think, like maybe your listeners are thinking, like, how could he reject you? You're like a work in progress. Why wouldn't he just invite you into the fold, right? Well,
Yeah.
if he had done that, he would just proved a lot of the stuff I thought was true. Like, he didn't care about really what I believed. He just wanted my butt in his seat, my buck in his coffer, and he didn't care about worldview stuff or truth. But he didn't. He rejected me, which was perfect. And then this is key, where after, like, as he's shaking my hand, rejecting me, he turned me towards his bookshelf, and he pulled off the bookshelf a book, and he handed it to me. And he said, John, you had a lot of questions that I don't think I did a very good job of answering tonight. I think the beginnings to some of those answers will be found in the pages of this book. Would you read it? And I said, sure, whatever. So I read it, and it was a book on Christian apologetics. And I had never interacted as an atheist with Christian apologetics before. And so I consumed that book. I read it over and over. And then I read another book on Christian apologetics and another book on Christian apologetics. And as I was reading these books on Christian apologetics, I realized a few things, mainly chief among them, two things. The first is that my naturalism, which is the worldview that undergirds atheism, the idea that all that exists is in the physical world, my naturalism couldn't answer some of life's most important questions. Questions of origin, meaning, purpose, destiny, morality, these types of things. And at the same time, the opposite was starting to prove true. Where my worldview was falling short, Christian theism, the worldview that I thought was so stupid and laughable, Christian theism could offer good answers to these profound questions. And so I started reconsidering my worldview and comparing it to the world around me. So our experiences can tell us truth about the world around us. And does my worldview of naturalism explain some of those truths I'm bumping into, like the existence of a moral depth, right? It seems to me like we live life as though there's an objective nature to morality. Right and wrong exist independent of my opinion about that. But my worldview didn't have room for that on naturalism. But Christian theism did, because you have a lawgiver, the existence of everything at all. Where'd everything come from? The beginning of the universe. My worldview couldn't give me an adequate explanation to where everything came from, because on naturalism, all I have to do is start with is nothing, but nothing comes from nothing. So how did we even get here? But Christian theism could give me that because they have an uncaused cause.
Yeah.
Then the huge one for me was the existence of the soul. It seems to me like there's an immaterial aspect to each and every one of us. It's a thing that we're aware of every waking moment of every single day. I called it consciousness. And sometimes we still call it that in order to kind of avoid the spiritual implications. Well, that's the soul. What is that? On naturalism, I have no room for that. But it's clearly something that exists in the world, and we experience it. So around every corner, I started to realize that Christian theism, as opposed to naturalism, offered me a better explanation for the way the world really is. It could describe reality better. And then around the same time, my future in-laws, they gave me a New Believers Bible. And it's really great. NLT translation, super easy to read and understand. So I read that cover to cover over the course of 3 months, Genesis to Revelation.
Oh, dang.
And so in that encounter with the Word of God, and then also as I started to bump into reality, looking for answers to life's most important questions, kind of God got a hold of me. And I went from being a fairly aggressive atheist to now a very passionate Christian. And I've never looked back since. And now that was nearly 20 years ago. So that's I hope I didn't take too long there, but that's kind of where
it was really good. It makes me want to ask more questions that you probably don't have time for.
I know.
Wow. Yeah.
Ask away, guys. I'm an open book.
That's really good. Yeah. I think I'm actually gonna take the first question that I originally did want to ask, and I guess that's just kind of, you became a Christian, and you got that worldview, and then you've kind of now existed, obviously, within the Christian side of things for a while now. So what advances in Christian apologetics? So kind of it could be a line of thinking, an argument somebody hasn't necessarily thought of before that's legitimate and biblically based. Like what advancement, if you want to call it an advancement, have you seen since you've become a Christian that's really stuck out to you?
That's like a really good question. Two things come to my mind, just off the top of my mind. A positive and a negative answer. Not negative. Both are positives. One having to do with the atheist community, one having to do with the Christian community.
For sure.
I think what I've noticed in recent years is a major shift in how the atheistic community is reacting and interacting with Christian apologetics. We've gone from a kind of where I came up was under like the Richard Dawkins, the Daniel Dennett's, the Four Horsemen, Harris, all these guys, very aggressive, antagonistic, oftentimes, I'm honest, just kind of mean-spirited atheists. Not so much making a profound, proactive case for atheism and against Christianity, but more kind of just maligning Christians, calling them stupid. Like, that's where I came up. And that was a tactic that I kind of took on from the people that I learned. Well, I've seen a shift now. We've gone from like the Richard Dawkins, who now actually says that he's like, sometimes I've heard him say he's a cultural Christian now, which I don't even know what that means.
No.
So I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
cultural Christians just don't exist. Anyways, that's a whole nother topic. But so now we've gone from the aggressive Richard Dawkins types to now the much more thoughtful, like Alex O'Connor types,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Alex O'Connor is a little bit more honest in his investigation. Now he's still, I think, there's certain places where he's a little rough around the edges and he lashes out sometimes, but so do Christians. Let's be honest. Um, but I've noticed a difference and I think I think atheists now are taking some of the arguments more seriously.
Yeah.
Now, so that's from the atheistic perspective. Now, what I've noticed in the Christian world, one thing I think is kind of, pardon the pun, but the evolution of like theology of the mind stuff.
Yeah.
I think the like I mentioned, one of the biggest things that led me to go from atheism to Christianity was the existence of the soul, the mind. And I think like through the work of people like J.P. Moreland, we've seen some real great advancements in the argumentation for the existence of the soul. For a long time, I feel like we didn't, apologists didn't use that argument very often.
Yeah.
And I think that we should, because it's a huge problem for the naturalist. It's a really good part of the Christian worldview. There's also one more thing that maybe is tertiary to your question, like it's one layer removed maybe from the questions. I think that a major difference that I've found is the types of questions that people are asking have shifted and changed. I've been with Stand to Reason now seven, almost 8 years. So what I've noticed, even in just that kind of shortish period of time, people, like, I feel like people, when I say people, it's usually the younger generation between high school and young adults. So let's go 35 to 14 or 15. They're not asking for arguments for the existence of God anymore. You guys are in this age range, so maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like I'm feeling like it's easier to get somebody to agree, yes, something exists, like God exists, but they're more asking the question, why does this matter? Like, who cares? So it's much more like kind of cultural apologetics as opposed to formal or traditional apologetics. Like, no longer am I using the Kalam cosmological argument for the existence of God.
Yeah.
Students will grant me, yeah, sure, God exists, fine. Like, what's this matter for my life at all? Why should I live this way at all? So those are those are like three changes that I've seen. That's a really good question.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I would tend to agree. I think that it's a lot easier to tell people, oh, there's a God, or they're so blatantly, or if you have someone who is, anti there being a God, it's usually a very strict stance on that. Like, you're not really going to convince them. It's more of a complete hard issue than even any reasonability there. Not. Yeah, so I think my next question would just be, what do you think is the biggest threat to Christianity in modern culture today? I know we could say, you're saying maybe atheists treat it a little more seriously, but as far as anything that's affecting the culture, like, what do you think the biggest threat to modern Christianity is?
Another great question. One of the things that I think is a threat. So it's probably because, okay, like, let me talk this through for a minute.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a huge threat to Christianity because, the gates of hell will not prevail against the church.
Right.
So
I guess when I say threat, I mean more of a...
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, I think. But, like, that's why, like, I stumble. Yeah.
It's not going to.
This is such a good question. I'm going to get myself in so much trouble. I think politics is huge. I think there's been a yoking of the Christian worldview with a political party or political movement. So now what we've done is we've conflated the Christianity with republicanism. And now there's this idea that they're one and the same, and they are just not. And I think that's had that's a major detrimental impact on the Christian worldview. I know for me, my family, all of my family are very liberal. Most of them are still atheists. And when I talk to them about God, what's really interesting is over the last 6 years, they hear me saying that, like, that I'm a Trump supporter, not a Jesus supporter. And those two things are not the same. But they're hearing that, and they're hearing it for a reason, and that's because I think we've as mainstream evangelicalism has done a good job of kind of now conflating those two issues.
Yes.
I think now we're starting to maybe come out of it and pull away a little bit. So there's that. And then and I think that that's really impacted how the next generation sees us, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. I mean, I think it's fine for see, I'm going to get myself in so much trouble. But,
don't worry about it.
But I think it's the older
opinion,
generation doesn't care as much because they're like,
Sure.
rah, rah, along party lines. And I think the younger generation, like your generation, maybe mine and lower, but much so yours, you're not looking to vote along party lines anymore. You're more sophisticated in your thinking, where before it wasn't like that. And so you can't classify, one party or the other as more Christian or less anymore. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong. But then also I think a major, not threat, but a problem is apathy within the church.
Yes.
Like kind of it goes to one of the things I just said, just is this just like not really caring. Yeah, fine. God exists. Who cares? Like I'm going to live the way I want. And I understand that. Like, so I go to hell. Who cares? And that's really difficult to address in somebody's life. The problem of apathy, because you can't make somebody care. So
which is why
those are kind of two of the things.
Yeah, which is why I think it's really cool. Like even when you're saying, you were an aggressive atheist, it still goes to show. I think you're more often you're going to people who eventually do change or God works through, who aren't just constantly apathetic. If you are moving, even in a worse direction in a passionate way, there's a chance you're going to interact with those Christian elements and eventually see that truth, God willing. So yeah, no, apathy is very dangerous. I agree.
I mean, what do you think? Do you think what I said's right on, or what do you think?
From a personal opinion, I think it gets. I think I agree with you. I think we do. I would hope younger voters would tend to vote more, thinking about the candidate, thinking about the actual values that they want to see throughout their society, because there is a correlation between that and Christianity. And I think the reason it's sided more conservative is because conservatives wanted to keep the Christian values, whereas the other side, and I'll say the other side, the liberal side, is more like abortion's a more prevalent thing, the LGBTQ thing, which we view as sins. The point is, though, it's not, republicanism is not the Christian faith still. There's going to be a huge separation between that. I just think it happens to be more cohesive currently.
Right now, I feel like a lot of people, especially me and Aiden's generation, people that I interact on a daily don't actually go out of their way to find their own beliefs. And I feel like that's a big problem right now, where they just fall into, my parents said that this guy's good, so I'm going to go vote for him, or I'm going to go follow him. I think that's a huge problem that I see very often.
I see that on both sides. Yeah, that's fair. That's good.
I see that on both sides too. That's crazy. And I should be clear, like, political sides aren't neutral. There's definitely there's one side that seems to line up a little bit more with Christian values than the other. I don't think,
for sure.
I think like I have friends who are Christian and who are liberal. Yeah. But when they tell me that, it means, like, to me, there's a disconnect. There's something off that we need to address. My issue is the conflation of the Christian worldview into one political system or the other. So now you have like republicanism, and now that republicanism seems to be replacing Christianity to a certain extent. So
I would agree with that. No, that makes good sense.
There's no such thing as neutrality. So.
No. Yeah.
I just want to shift back. So you talk about you used to be an atheist, and now with your new project with Stand to Reason, Noise on the Street, I guarantee you talk with a lot of atheists, and I'd love to hear some of the stories, and you can promote your new show at the end of the episode. But I want to get your opinion on what's the strongest objection in Christianity that you've encountered that still kind of churns your stomach a little bit. Like, how can you really relate? Because I don't know if you know who James Rochford is, but he brings up a really good point in one of his sermons and says, what does an atheist say to a little girl that has cancer? Right? There's no hope. Where a Christian says, oh, you get to see the light of Jesus. So I just want to get your opinion, because you've seen both sides and been on both sides.
Yeah. So what he's expressing is the same thing that was expressed years and years and years ago. There was a debate between a famous atheist, it was Bertrand Russell,
Yeah, Bertrand Russell, that's
versus,
who he brings up.
yeah, Copleston. And during the course of debate, and I think I heard William Lane Craig bring this up once. That's where I get it from. But during the course of the debate, Bertrand Russell, like kind of the crescendo moment, is he looks at Copleston and says, like, what are you gonna say? What do you have to say to a child who's dying as you kneel next to his bed? And the response by Copleston is amazing. I think it's right on. He says, "I have a great deal to say. What do you have to say? Tough luck. Better luck next time." Because as a Christian, we have hope, right? Tribulation produces perseverance. Perseverance, proven character, a hope, and a hope that does not disappoint, is what Paul says. These about momentary light afflictions, producing in us an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison. Right? I mean, time and time again, we're filled with hope. Neither heights nor depths, neither powers nor principalities, nothing's created, nor any other created thing, will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Right? So we have hope in the midst of trials. What does the atheist have to say? They don't have anything to say. And all of this is speaking to, and I agree, like your question has to, like, what's the one thing that kind of the challenge that still is difficult? I think it's the perennial challenge of evil. The idea, not just the logical problem, by the way, the logical problem or the intellectual problem, which is, a syllogism, if God was all good, he would want to get rid of evil. If God is all powerful, he should be able to get rid of evil. Evil exists, therefore God does not exist. I'm not talking about that. The logical problem, I think, is easily surmountable. I mean, all you have to do is show one instance where there'd be good reason for an all-powerful good God to allow evil to exist, and I think we can do that easily. We can do that. All we need to do is show, okay, you need evil to exist in order to have things like bravery. Heroic acts don't happen when everything is going perfectly. They happen in the face of evil. So you need evil in order for heroism to exist. Done. We solved the problem of evil. But the real problem of evil isn't intellectual. I think it's emotional. And that's why in that debate long ago, like with Copleston and Russell, that was why there was such a rhetorical power. The pastor that you just quoted, why there's such rhetorical power there is because that gets to the real problem, which is in here. It's in the hat, because when we all experience evil, it's very close to us. It changes us. It forms us. So as the Christian, what we need to do is we need to figure out, how do we speak to this, not just this.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we do that is we show that even in the midst of trials, there's hope. That God is there with us. And this is one of the most beautiful things about the worldview, the Christian worldview, is that God is not some far off being that merely says, I understand what you're going through. No. He actually entered into our suffering, and he experienced the same suffering, the same world, the same fallenness, the same brokenness that we experience. And then he took it to another level, as he was whipped, scourged, put on false trial, and hung on a Roman cross. And then he took it even to another level where he took upon himself the sins of the entire world. Like, I mean, we lose sight of this stuff. I feel like what the Christian worldview has to say. We don't fully understand that Jesus, when he was on that cross, he didn't just bear the sins of his friends. He didn't just bear the sins of first century Judea. He bore the sins of the entire world, past, present, and future. He took that penalty upon himself in that moment, which is staggering, And so, like, it's really interesting, because I think it's funny, the problem of pain and suffering, the problem of evil is that issue that you're bringing up. It's the one that's most difficult to surmount, but at the same time, I also think it's the best argument for the existence of God.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I think I wrestled a little bit with the intellectual problem of that, and I think the best answer I ever found was in Augustine, in his Confessions, was something that really, because he brings the nature of evil, and he basically says what Standard Reason has often said at their conferences and stuff is it's a will thing. That's why he's eventually able to say, well, if evil is a substance of some kind, then maybe you'd have an argument. But he gets to the point where he's like, I don't think evil's a substance. It's just a turning away of your will from God, which it creates evil. And so that answers the entire thing. I really liked that, and I liked your answer, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Augustine gets at the heart of the matter. For me as an atheist, this was really difficult for me to overcome. Well, I couldn't overcome it, but it was difficult. I wrestled with it and it led me to the foot of the cross, is the fact that in order for me as an atheist to even bring up the problem of evil, I have to assume evil exists.
Yeah.
So, and as I assume evil exists, it means I know what evil is. And if I know what evil is, that means I know what good is. And if I know the difference between good and evil, that means I have to have a standard by which to judge or differentiate the two. Where am I getting that standard, guy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that standard, all I have is this is the standard me.
Yeah.
If I'm the standard, I'm the master of my own ship, then it's a dog eat dog world, homie. Like, get out of my way. I'm going to get mine while I can. And this isn't me, by the way, that's saying this. Like, read the atheists that say this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Thomas Hobbes in Leviathan says that life is solitary, poor, short, brutish, and
nasty. Yeah.
Like, get busy living, get busy dying. Who cares? Or, I mean, Dawkins, after him, of course, like more recently, the universe that we observe has precisely the qualities that we should expect if there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no good, no evil, nothing but pitiless indifference. And then we just got to ask ourselves the question, does that describe reality? Does that describe the world around us? Does that satisfy our longings within us? That's like C.S. Lewis's language, right?
Right.
When we experience the world around us, is it pitiless indifference? Well, no, it's not. Like, I know people matter. That's why I cry out for justice in the face of injustice. I've been to Auschwitz. If you guys haven't ever been, you should go. It's unbelievable. It'll change you. And I remember when I was standing in Auschwitz, I was on a tour bus with a bunch of like really rowdy Irish guys like your age, like young men. And they were like, guys, they were like little mini Conor McGregors, dude. Like, they were just they were an absolute mess. They were like wrestling each other, beating each other up. But there were like maybe 10 of them on the bus and me, and that's it. It was a big bus. So I was sitting in the front. I'm a girl dad, guys. Like, I don't do conflict. I'm like, they're like beating each other up. They're kicking each other down the stairs of the bus. They're like noogieing each other, like being completely ridiculous. Yet when we got to those iron gates, as we're going in to Auschwitz, what do you think happened to these guys' demeanor and behavior?
Quiet.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. Nobody needed to come over and say, hey guys, chill out. Calm down. No, it right away, immediately leveled. Because everybody that went into that place knew that there was a weight. We experienced it together. What was that weight? Well, it was a moral weight. We knew what happened there was weighty. It was atrocious. And I mean, there were hundreds of people around me on a beautiful July day, not a cloud in the sky, and you could hear a pin drop. Because this is all part of the universal human experience. Evil exists, and we recognize it. And it's not the standard isn't me. What happened in Auschwitz isn't wrong because I think it's wrong. It's wrong because it violates a standard outside of me. A law above the law is what the tribunal, the Nuremberg court said. There's a law above the law. Because the Nazi war criminals, of course, for their defense, they just said, we're following rules. We're just following orders. The culture comes up with the orders and we just follow them. No. There's a law above the law and we're accountable to that law. And atheism doesn't give you that. It doesn't give you a standard, but it doesn't give you a standard giver either.
Yeah, no, that's and maybe that even kind of ties back to the last thing we talked about. What's a big threat to Christianity? And that brings it back to kind of what I see actually more so in my generation is at least from the day-to-day person, is that moral relativity is that, it's very centered on the self. It's very selfish in some ways and
you do you, boo.
Yeah. But that's what like you're saying, even pointing back to Lewis, has become so dangerous is it's been implemented kind of just over time in different books and different reasonings and different things that people are coming into contact with. And as C.S. Lewis points out, whether intentionally or not, they're coming into contact with it through books that aren't supposed to be teaching those things. I believe Lewis says it's like, in a grammar book, a kid's learning moral relativity slowly. Right. You know what I mean? By the issues presented, I believe he talks about a waterfall and whether or not the waterfall is sublime. And one person says
sublime or beautiful.
Yeah, yes. Yes. And so that, that's kind of the thinking that I have seen infiltrate my generation, and some of the debates I've seen with that younger audience is usually I should just do what I want to do because it doesn't matter.
Jacob, you asked about the noise on the streets stuff, and this is really interesting because So I was just in New Zealand, and I went out, and some of the videos I think are getting released now. I went out on the streets, and like I just like go out on the street and talk to people. This is not difficult, and it's not. I mean, it's not for everybody. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody should be doing this or anything, but it's just fun for me. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there's a video that I don't even know if it's got. I don't even know if we got the audio for it, so it might not get released. I walked up to two young ladies, they're college students, in a pack in New Zealand, and I just started talking to them, and I asked them, "Hey, do you live here in New Zealand?" That's how I start the conversation. They say yes. Oh, are you students here at university? Yes. I ask them, "Do you like it here in New Zealand?" "Yeah, we love it." "What do you love about New Zealand?" So notice I'm just asking them questions, right?
Right.
And what do you love about New Zealand? And one of the girls said, "Well, it's just beautiful." And then it provided a great opportunity for us. You kind of, Aiden, you kind of brought up this Lewis argues this stuff, the argument from beauty, and
Yep.
and I said, "Well, what makes it beautiful?" And they, well, the waterfalls and the lush green pastures and all the hiking and the ocean and all this stuff. And I was like, "Well, what do you mean by, like, what do you think is, like, what is beautiful? Like, what is beauty? Have you ever thought about this?" And they're like, kind of looked up, and we're like, "I've never really thought about it. It's just something that we know exists, right? We all know something when we see it is beautiful, and to varying degrees. So there is some subjectivity to it for sure, but
Right.
but we all know beauty when we see it, and not only that, but we all know ugly when we see it, right? The opposite of beauty. And it was a great opportunity where I had this conversation with these two young ladies, and I didn't win them for Christ or anything like this, but just by talking to them about what beauty is, what it's not, how we know something that's beautiful from something that's not. That drew them to the point that there's a standard outside of us by which we judge what's beautiful and what's not. And one was a professing atheist, one was a Christian who had kind of walked away and was kind of in the camp of the nun, the Nones, not Nun, like habit nun, but none.
Right.
They don't have a religion. One was pretty, not aggressive, but she was pro-atheism. How about that? And by the end of our conversation, after I had drawn them out into this, I just asked them a question. I just said, "Hey guys, Noah, thanks for humoring me for the last 10 minutes. It's great to meet you. I just have one more question. Do you think you're going to think about something differently now that we talked?" And both of them said yes. They're like, "Yeah, well, now I need to figure out where this beauty stuff comes from. And that's a win for me."
Yeah. You put a rock in their shoe, as a
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Going in their shoe, man. Just get them thinking about something. And who knows, maybe they might have gone off to the bar and forgotten all about the conversation and never going to give me a second thought, or you never know. Maybe they're wrestling with it to this day and they're talking to other Christians now and on their way to faith in Christ.
So,
but,
yeah, I mean, plant a seed and God will take care of the rest.
Yeah.
That's right, man. And that's the goal. Like with my stuff on the streets, like my goal when you watch the videos is never to make somebody look stupid. I'm not trying to be pithy or Christian destroys blah blah blah. It's not my that's just not my project. I'm not. There's enough of that online. I'm just trying to plant seeds, man, like what you just said, and then trust that somebody else will water them, and then eventually God will cause them to grow and bring the right person at the right time to harvest that fruit and build the kingdom of God one person at a time. That's
absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
we're getting down to the wire. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I think Aiden has one more question, then I want to ask you one more. You just talked about, we talked about like planting seeds, right? And I know a lot of people, especially in the public school system, I know several of my friends, especially that go to my church, right, that are very, very strong Christians that want to be able to plant those seeds or to preach the gospel to their friends in the church or into schools. But within the school system, it's so hard to do that. Do you have any advice for teens that go to school on a daily that want to preach, that want to do similar stuff to what you do on the streets, but just without ruining a relationship but still wanting to preach the good news?
Yeah. Oh man. Change comes slowly. It's almost never is it dramatic and overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage those of your listeners, your friends, and whoever it is that's out there that's worried about this issue is don't put too much pressure on yourself that like change has to happen overnight. You're in it for the long haul. So have the long game in view. But more than that, don't put the pressure of salvation on yourself either.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like if okay, so we're going to go do evangelism. I'm going to represent Christ while at school tomorrow. I feel like I need to share the gospel with 10 people. Well, I would say, and this might be controversial, like get that out of your mind. Just go represent Christ well, and that comes in a different way. Sometimes, yes, it's through sharing the gospel, but sometimes it's just sticking up for somebody that needs to be sticking up for, or telling the truth when it's had, or, just not being a complete idiot, just like kind of standing out that way, or standing up for what's right. That's hard to do. But like do these kind of incremental steps and be faithful in the moment that God's given us. And let's not shoulder the burden of salvation. I think that this is a huge problem. Like I feel like we feel like if we don't get to the gospel, we don't get this person saved, we think, oh, well, we failed. Well, no, that's not our goal. Like we don't do the saving.
Yeah.
You and I, we don't save anything. Who saves?
Jesus.
Jesus saves. So let Jesus do his work, and we just got to do our work. Well, what's our work? Well, 2 Corinthians 5:20 says, therefore, as though God were making an appeal through you, we are ambassadors for Christ, begging on behalf of Christ to be reconciled to God. So all we are is beggars, man, like for the Most High, but we're beggars, and we're just ambassadors. We're representatives. And we do that through living a life that's pleasing to God. Yes, like I hate the saying, that's misattributed to like Francis of Assisi or whatever, like share the gospel and use words if needed or whatever. No, you need to use words to share the gospel. Nobody's going to come to faith, or very few will come to faith just by watching how you're living. But I will say that the famous apologetics verse that we all know, always be prepared to give a defense for the hope that you have, yet with gentleness and reverence or respect. Right? It's Peter 3:15. People forget that the context of that verse is the first century church is under the beginnings of persecution. So things aren't looking up for the Christian community, but the world around them, the surrounding communities, looking in on this Christian community that's suffering the beginnings of persecution. And they're coming to them being like, your world sucks, homie. Like, why are you so hopeful? And then they have an answer, his name's Jesus, and so like we can learn from that too, that as people look at us as Christians, especially today where the culture is so confused, and we're hopeful, even in the midst of things like the advent of AI and sexual ethics seemingly like spinning around and around and around. Like all this stuff that the Christian community, sometimes we hop on these bandwagons of these things and are like, the sky is falling. Well, let's get off of that. Our sky's never falling because it's upheld by Jesus Christ, who's omnipotent, right? So we place our hope in Christ, not the surrounding culture. And as we find this hope in Christ, it's going to give us that peace that passes all understanding. And then the world sees that. And we're not freaking out when the world seems to be falling apart, because our world's never going to fall apart. Because our world's assured in Christ. He's keeping it for us, not us. So like he has built a home for us, right? And where he's gone, we too one day will be. And this is why the promises of God are so important. So for the students who are kind of wrestling with that, I just take the pressure off of ourselves.
Sure.
Just you go out there and do the best that you can. One conversation at a time. Don't feel the pressure of somebody's salvation. Also understand, and this is the last thing, and then I'll leave it up to you guys, like if you have something to add, but the number one mistake I see Christians do when they're doing evangelism is that we assume too much of the burden. Like we, not just in somebody's salvation, but we also feel like we have to answer every objection that's brought up. And that's just not true. Like have good conversations with people, but do it by asking questions. And when somebody makes a claim, make them justify the claim. Like I don't believe in your God, your ancient, medieval sky daddy. I can't believe in him. Instead of diving in with an apologetic to that, just ask them a question. Like, what do you, like, tell me about that.
Right.
Like, why do you believe that God is just like a sky daddy? Where'd you get that idea? Like, what's that even mean? And then have a conversation with them and not feel like you have to answer every single problem or objection.
Sure.
Yeah.
So those are kind of I hope that makes sense. I feel like that might have been
muddy. For sure.
No, I think that makes good sense. No, it's very clear.
It's good. Yeah. No, that was really good. I think that's a really good argument for that, for sure. Just plant a seed and let just have conversation with people.
Yeah, just be faithful. Yeah. That's all God wants from us, is just to be faithful. And will we mess up? Yeah, but that's okay. And then we get back on the horse and we do it again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's tough, man. Living right now is, I think, as a consistent Christian, is difficult. So,
Right.
one more piece of advice is, I'd say find your tribe, man. Find your community.
Yeah.
Mm.
I did about a month in like a mission type thing, but it wasn't really missions. It was actually that time I went to Germany. Went to Auschwitz. I went to Germany, the Czech Republic, and Poland. I was gone for a month, and I asked Greg, my boss, Greg Kokel, just for some advice, because I was going as kind of an outreach group, so I was surrounding myself mostly with non-Christians.
Right.
And he gave me a really good piece of advice. He said, just plant your flag early and high. And what he meant by that is stick to my convictions and let people know where I stand on stuff, and then like raise the flag so people that agree with me can come to me. So then you start surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded. So like students, you guys who are making defenses or out in the worldview trying to live Christianly, I'd say make sure that you're surrounding yourself with a solid Christian community as well, so that when you go get beat up, so that when you get pressed against, you have a place kind of to go to get bandaged up. It's like, I don't know if you guys watch MMA. Do you guys watch MMA ever?
I do.
Or boxing? I love boxing.
Yeah.
And so a key component to an MMA fighter's success or a boxer's success is actually somebody that we don't even consider, and that's their cut man. Their cut man in the corner is vital, because it's the cut man who, after you go and you get beat up and you go back to the corner and you've gotten 60 seconds or 90 seconds, they're going to repair your wounds so you can go back out and fight. Well, we need cut men too, because we're in a fight. So find those good cut men that agree with you, that are like-minded, that you can go back to, and they can kind of patch you up and send you out. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Aiden, do you want to go ahead and ask the last question before we head up
more? And it was tough to kind of decide, but I think I just kind of wanted to ask you, like, do you think there's anything, an issue, maybe culturally, socially, that, and it's hard to say the church collectively, because there are different churches and different ideas constantly fluctuating, but is there an issue that you see that you in the culture that you wish the church would confront more, or an issue where you're like, oh, like, I wish we would step up and tackle this issue, maybe because it would be really helpful for this group of people,
the church is avoiding,
or something like that?
Yeah, yes. I want to start with an answer that maybe you guys wouldn't be expecting. I have great compassion for pastors in the church.
Sure.
I'm a pastor. I started the church 7 years ago. I know what it's like to pastor a big church. My church is teeny now. So this isn't a critique of pastors. I just want to throw that out there, because pastors, I believe most pastors are doing the best they can with what they have.
Yeah.
And they're doing a great job. Most pastors in this country are just faithful men who are shepherding small flocks of people, 100 or less, not getting paid very well, and they're trying to be all things to all people, which is so difficult. So not only are they a preacher, but they've got to be a counselor. Not only a counselor, but they have to be an expert in child raising. Not only an expert in child raising, but they have to know how to tutor. It's like a pastor's job. Like, people think they know how to do everything. And so this isn't a critique on the pastors. I think most pastors in this country are doing a wonderful, wonderful job, and they're faithful and they're amazing. If there were some issues, I would like to see the church corporate, me and you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily even from our church, like our local church setting.
Yeah, I mean more the Christian faith.
Absolutely. I think that I think that we need to take abortion more seriously, and what I mean by that is I'd like to see more people on the streets. Yes, doing evangelism at abortion mills, offering pro-life apologetics, but also rallying around this topic and offering real life, amazing, practical solutions for people. I would love it if in this country, in the first turn of a person who is pregnant that maybe is shocked by that or does not want to maybe have this baby, instead of thinking Planned Parenthood, they think the Church of Jesus Christ. I would love it if we could win that tide, and it's multifaceted. It's the arguments, it's standing outside the mill and like boots on the ground, but it's also comes through giving of resources and giving up of our time and sacrificing our homes maybe to welcome people in, or adopting children and these types of things. And it's
Right.
happening, but I'd like to do that more.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I really think
Couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
I listened to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and this is from a pastor of a church camp that I attend, and he talked about how like the Bible says take care of the widows and the orphans, right? And I think that we do a good job, but I don't think the mindset is always the orphans. I think the mindset is a lot of times go to the old lady's house, help her out with her dishes or whatever. And I think that the church could definitely do a better job of helping out the orphans and helping out people that might not want to have that baby, but hey, somebody in the church is looking to adopt. Hey, I will take it off your hands if you really don't want that baby. I think that's something that
that's a really heart-wrenching issue for me. So absolutely more
or like so when I used to pastor at a big church here in town, and when I pastored there, it actually made my pro-life apologetics and my pro-life ministry stuff so much easier, because I had a big enough pool of people to pull from where I have a lawyer friend who's willing to do any legal issues for free for a mom. I mean, this is available through the state of California anyway, but like this is a Christian woman willing to get a really good attorney.
Right.
I had a retired couple that lives on a huge property that has a ADU, a small house on their property that's willing to give that house rent free to a mom who doesn't abort her baby, not just for the duration of her pregnancy, but for a year after her pregnancy.
That's awesome.
I had a businessman in my church who was willing to give that woman or her husband a job if they needed it, at a local coffee shop. I had, and actually another guy who owned a financial institution that would, according to their skill level, like employ them so they have a job. What I was trying to do is I was trying to gather people in my community that would help me overcome every single objection that anybody would give me to them wanting to take the life of that innocent human being inside the womb. So when I would talk to a woman, she'd say like, I don't know where I'm going to live. I'd say, I have a house.
Yeah.
I have a place for you to live. No questions asked, no credit check, no nothing, rent free. Okay. I can't afford medical care. I have a doctor. I have a doctor who will see you, who will prescribe you medicines. I have a family who wants to pay for those medicines. I have, I can't, at every turn, I'm going to lose my job. No problem. What are you getting paid? We'll match it. I have a job for you. So like, this is what I mean is the Christian community. It's one thing to stand outside the mill, and we need to do that. Like, that's where I'm gifted. Like, I like to do that, and I stand outside and I plead with people not to kill their unborn babies.
Yeah.
But it's what in the process of that, I want to make sure that I'm also turning people into or onto resources that help them not just save the baby's life, but them and that baby thrive. If they don't want to keep the baby, adoption, absolutely. We have couples that are looking to adopt.
Right.
And so Focus on the Family, which is a ministry in Colorado. Years and years and years ago, they get involved in the foster care initiative in their state. What was happening in Colorado was the foster care system run by the state was getting overrun. It was in complete disarray. Too many foster kids to do with. It was falling apart. The infrastructure couldn't handle it. So what Focus on the Family did is they put a call out to the churches, and they said, you can look this up. It's crazy. What they said is they said, our goal is to completely eradicate the need for state-run foster care in the state of Colorado. And the way that we're going to do that is every church, we want 2 families to volunteer to adopt at least 1 child. 2 families from every church, 1 child. So that means 2 children in every church. And not every church could do it, of course. But guys, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of churches. Well, the churches heard the call, and what happened is they reached their goal. Every kid that needed to be placed in a foster home was able to be placed in a foster home because the church stepped up.
Yeah,
and this is what happens as the church steps up into these types of issues. They can actually solve them in real time.
Yep.
So that's one of the areas that I would love to see the church get more engaged in the abortion discussion in more creative ways.
Yeah, and it just also shows, as you were saying earlier, sometimes speaking to the emotional level of people. When you go to someone, and it's like, and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about aborting my baby, and you're like, hey, I've got a house, a job, money, all those things. It shows, okay, this person's willing to do all this. Why? And I think that that also puts a really kind of something that they have to deal with when someone is that adamant and that just passionate about pursuing the life of that unborn child. So
for sure.
That's really cool.
It's putting our mouth where our money where our mouth is. And there are churches, by the way, that do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know Apologia Church in Arizona. It's pastored by Jeff Durbin, right? They I don't agree with everything Jeff Durbin says or does, but with the abortion stuff, I don't know if you know who he is.
I do.
He does great work.
Sure.
And his church, every year, I don't know if it's every year, but I've seen a couple sermons online where, at the end of the year sermon, they go over what they've done this year. And every year he brings out people onto the stage, women with babies that they have rescued from abortion. And it's just so cool to see that. And even if every church, I truly believe if every church really got mobilized, started making a presence outside of Planned Parenthood in these places, and started putting their money where their mouth is, I think within a year you could see these institutions shut down and abortion rates plummet.
Yeah,
we don't need more legislation. We don't need the right politician in the office. All we need is the Church of Jesus Christ acting like the church and moving towards these women and sacrificing our own maybe comfort for them. So
for sure.
Yeah, but it's I understand that's hard too. I mean,
yeah, it is, but no, you're absolutely right, and I think that could make a big change to that.
Huge difference.
Make a big dent, man.
Yeah.
Do you want to just any upcoming videos on your Noyes on the Street? Anything you want to say specifically regarding that channel? Anything you want to shout out?
Thanks for that. So I do Noyes on the Streets, and it's on YouTube. I actually have no idea how to promote this thing. I'm not good at social media. Yeah, it's I don't know. Go watch the videos. I don't know. What do you cool guys say? Smash that like button.
Smash the like button.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Man, I feel so dirty.
I think
it's a good. I'm having a good time doing these videos.
Yeah.
Where I'm just going and talking to people on the street, and if people can glean something from it, fantastic. If not, but it's Noyes on the Streets. It has an S on the end. Noyes on the Streets, and I would love it if people would subscribe to the channel and let me know in comments and stuff what they'd like to see more or less of. So
for sure. Yeah, guys, Jon Noyes, appreciate it for coming on the show. He works with Stand the Reason. Go check out his. Anything else you'd want to add before we head out, Aiden or John?
I think I'm good.
I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys later. Peace out.